Endless swiping, very shallow connections, right? Just mainly photo driven has just created a lot of negativity, I would say, when it comes to online dating. Even the swipe based apps are now realizing that, that is burning out the younger generations that are going through this right now, this endless swiping. I feel we're going to benefit from this, what I'd call the post swipe era of more intentional dating.
What is the biggest pains you think that people are experiencing when they're going on these dating apps right now? And how is Coffee Meets Bagel positioning to change that so that dating becomes easier and not such a slog?
Yeah, one thing that we've always been a believer of is
there's a struggle when it comes to dating. And I feel that, like, genuinely. I'm so glad that I'm married because honestly, I don't think I'd survive the dating market right now. I genuinely don't. Hey, y'all, welcome back to Big Asian Energy. You know, when I was single, I spent a lot of time on dating apps. And if you're Asian American and you've been on the apps, doing the swiping thing, you probably already know what it's like. Because when you're on the apps, you can't hide your Asianness, right? Your ethnicity and your race plays a role pretty much from the moment that your profile shows up on someone's screen. And people are going to make snap judgments about you based on the first few pictures that you have before they read a single word or had a conversation with you. So the way that we're seen on these platforms has always had a very direct impact on the matches we get, the conversations that follow, and oftentimes the relationships that we end up in. And that doesn't stop after the first date either. A recent study from Coffee Meets Bagel, one of the top Asian American dating apps that support Asian Americans, found that more than half of AAPI daters have felt culturally misunderstood by a partner. And in fact, 1 in 3 has ended a relationship because of it. And by the way, if you're not on the dating apps yourself, you're the friend, the cousin, the sibling watching someone you love going through it, wondering why it's getting harder and not easier. This is the episode for you. If you're new here, welcome to Big Asian Energy. Each week we go deep with Asian American leaders, change makers, ceiling breakers, and a few troublemakers who are redefining what it means to break through the ceilings of their own community. And as always, if you hear something on this episode that made a difference for you, I would love it if you could do 2 things for me. 1, leave a review. It honestly makes my day and it helps our mission to amplify more Asian American leader videos. And 2, send this episode to someone in your life that you care about and tell them why. Because as we always say on the show, when we rise together. And if somebody in your life sent you this episode today, I just want to say that person sees you. Don't take that for granted. Today, we are chatting with the CEO of Coffee Meets Bagel. And I'm going to introduce you to him in a moment because Coffee Meets Bagel has facilitated over 250 million matches. And our guest today is here to give us the real story of actually what's driving dating and relationships for Asian Americans today. His name is Quincy Yang. And, if you don't know about Coffee Meets Bagel yet, it was started in 2012 by 3 Korean American sisters who felt that swiping was broken. And honestly, I can't agree with them. They famously turned down $30 million offer initially on Shark Tank, and within the first 2 years of launching, Asian American and Pacific Island daters made up the majority of its users, or at least half. And in many ways, the platform was not only built for us, it was built by us. So Quincy has been guiding the company for the past 7 years, first a CFO and then into CEO. He's a UC Berkeley Has graduate with 25 years in finance and operation, including leadership roles at OpenTable, StormAge, Zynga, and Yahoo. More importantly, he's an Asian American who's been on both sides of the table that you're sitting at right now. The single person on the apps trying to figure it out, and the operator who sees the patterns across millions of profiles. And today he is here to spill the tea, or should I say coffee, on what it's like to date as an Asian American in today's world. Welcome, Quincy, to Big Asian Energy.
Well, happy to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you, John.
Okay, so let's jump into it. I got first and foremost this report from you or someone from your company about Asian Americans in dating as of this year. Can we just jump into what have you learned? What has Coffee Meets Bagels learned, and what it's like to be dating as Asian today?
Yeah, it's interesting. Asians, growing up as an Asian American, you're immersed in this kind of family-oriented, very traditional household, especially if you're a child of immigrants that come to this country. And So I kind of don't realize it that how different I am until then you start working, you go to school, and you start to meet people who are not Asian, and you realize how different you are, and the food you bring to school is like, oh, that smells weird or whatever it may be, right? Like it's normal to you, but then you go to outside your house and you realize, okay, you're quite different as an Asian American.
Yeah,
So
we take off our shoes when we enter
yeah,
our
exactly.
date's house. That's an
Yeah.
important one.
Yeah, so what we learned is so we did this survey this year for Asian American Heritage Month, month of May. Yeah, and we what we learned was very validating, right? So I've known these things to be true, but it was really validating that the data backed up where, for example, 9 in 10 AAPI daters feel that culture is important in a relationship, right? And I think if you're not Asian, or at least let's say you're white, you may not pay attention to culture as much, right? Because when you're raised, you're not really necessarily talking about it. Whereas in my house, my parents are talking about it a lot, so I'm very aware of my background and my heritage and ancestry. So I think that seeing these results where Asian daters are pretty much twice as likely to respond that culture and something related to culture, it matters a lot when it comes to relationships and very, very important. So yeah, so I think that the findings were um yeah, like I said, it was very validating that the data actually backed up what
Hmm.
I've had an intuition was true growing up.
Hmm. And what would you say when you were going through it? There, like you said, yeah, culture means a lot to us. When I was dating different people from different cultures, that came up. There's a few things, right? One is, do we like the same food? I think that's a big that's a big one.
Yeah.
And then there's other deeper things that you talked about. You know, how does our parents perceive it? How does our family perceive it? Because we do that does matter for many of us. Was there anything that stood out to you as surprising as in the studies?
Yeah, I would say on that point about food, that was an interesting one where I had that suspicion of how important food was to Asians, but that also was validating where I think it was like 70% said that food matters, like when it comes to dating and relationships and just like an expression of love and value, just values and connection to people, right? And that was about twice as likely, I think, as non-Asians to answer it that way. So, so yeah, and with me and my wife, yeah, we just naturally connect through food. It's something we talk about, like our parents. Oh, when my grandmother or grandfather made this and that, like it's something that we talk about and think about a lot, reminisce about a lot.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of surprising results, I don't nothing comes to mind. Like it did, like the results did seem consistent with
Hmm.
what I was expecting. Yeah, so that one, yeah, I don't have nothing jumps out as surprising. Other than I was like, oh, I was actually surprised that the results were as accurate as I thought they were, or they turned out to be what I thought. I was a little surprised that yeah, it was more
Hmm.
representative than I was thinking. Yeah.
And what when you're looking at Asians who are coming into the app, I'm curious, like, what is it that you notice about them? Are there any other differences in the way that they interact with it and who they're looking for, how they
Mhm.
message one another that differs between culture groups, for example?
Yeah, I think one study we published a couple of years ago was kind of the opposite of what OkCupid found, right? So OkCupid had this somewhat notorious finding where, hey, Asian men, right, were
I,
probably at
I, I know the one
near
you're
the
talking
bottom,
about.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so our app is quite flipped, where Asian men, Asian women are the top, right? Because our brand, how we've designed our app attracts so many Asians to our app, where like you mentioned, about half of our users are Asian American, and that's U.S. population maybe 6-7%, right? So we're 6-7 times more represented on our app. So in terms of the social status of people on our app, it's Asians are have much higher status, I would say, on Coffee Meets Bagel. Yeah, so I think that data point shows that people have a lot of success on our app. Right? It's probably why you and I both know a lot of people that have met their partners on Coffee Meets Bagel, just because you're an Asian, especially an Asian male, right? Where if you're on another dating app, you may be not really get too prioritized right in the algorithm, and you may not see a lot of people like you or like myself. And so we Asians get a lot of success on our app, so a lot of engagement, a lot of matches. That's why 250 million matches, very successful as a company. Yeah, and I'd say that that Asians are even more engaged. They're higher value, higher retention. Yeah, all of our statistics across the board show that Asians are way more. Like the product market fit is much stronger, I think, amongst Asians. It's also strong for non-Asians as well. So it's not about. By the way, a lot of our data shows Asians aren't just looking for other Asians. So Asians they come to our app because they feel comfortable, but they're not necessarily just looking for other Asians. So that there's a lot of people that we have so many couples that are non-Asian and Asian, kind of mixed of mixed ethnicity and all that. So yeah, so I'd say that's probably the most telling engagement, like when we look at our in-app behavior.
So what it sounds like is if you're Asian, delete your Tinder. Go check out Coffee Meets Bagel. You're gonna be more likely to find the person that you're looking for on the platform. That's great. What has I think this is particularly important for so many of us who go on these things, because sometimes that swipe game can feel exhausting. I don't know. Like I remember going through those apps and, it just feels so mechanical. You're just like swipe, 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 landing on those things. A question I always had is, what makes a good profile for us? What are the kind of profiles that get the kind of the best ROI, if I can use that language, the best return on your investment in terms of
number one is your photos. Okay, so the data that we've seen, if you have at least 4 photos, then you're about 3 times as likely to get liked. So when people are able to see you more for who you are, see what activities that you like to do. Do you have pets? Because that's a big one. If you have a dog or a cat, people really engage with that. So I'd say more photos is almost always better. Not just 1 or 2. That's you'll have the least success with that. Tinder, I think generally, they've changed things quite a bit over time, but usually you see like 1 or 2 photos, right? So I think they've understood as well that depth matters. Yeah, so for us, we actually have a lot of people uploading a lot of photos, so that which helps the success rate quite a bit. I'd say the second most important thing after photos is prompts. So if you write "I like," "I am," or what I'm looking for in a relationship, so those prompts that you put on your profile create conversation, so people kind of understand. It can create a good dialogue if people match with you, because then you have a prompt, they know a little bit more about you. Whereas a photo can only tell so much about you, right? It doesn't really say that much about you other than activities. But a prompt, it gets more into your values and your intentions. So I'd say photos first and then prompts second. Yeah, and I think the more, especially as a man, I think based on our user research, women really they spend a lot of time on profiles actually looking at men's profiles. So they're looking for, are they putting in the time? Is the profile filled out? They want to know more about you. They want to know that you're a good person. First of all, you're a real person, but also like, are you a good person? Yeah. So I think the more depth and content you put and intentionality into your profile, that really resonates with especially women.
I like that. Yeah. Put in some effort, guys. Put in some effort. It pays off. It's a good way. So a moment ago, you referenced there's an infamous study out there that perhaps is a bit outdated, from OkCupid, talking about how Asian men were less likely to be swiped on and on that platform. Now, with Coffee Meets Bagel being a much more Asian-friendly platform, I'm curious, what has your stats revealed in terms of, perhaps how Asian men or women are seen in regards to the numbers or the way that they're perceived based on their culture or ethnicity?
Yeah, I think the great thing about Coffee Meets Bagel, we were probably one of the first major dating apps to give users more control in who they were looking for, right? So we have a lot of filters, preferences that I think a lot of other dating apps have since followed, because as an Asian, you're generally very clear or specific of what you're looking for, right? You're because of your cultural heritage. It's like, okay, you're generally, you may be looking for someone who will understand you and hear you, right? So therefore, if you go to the filters, you can filter by ethnicity, religion, education, right? There's certain values, of course, that are very important typically for Asians traditionally. So Coffee Meets Bagel gives you that flexibility to filter for that, right? So, and then we're giving the users the choice. Some people want that, some people don't, and we give them that choice. And we in our algorithm, we will respect what the
Mm,
user puts in there, right? So I'd say that's why, and on our app, we Asians are probably more successful than non-Asians on our app because they know what they want. They're choosing their filters properly. We have so many users that and that you're going to find somebody that is very likely to match what you're looking for, and that's why we've been able to generate so many matches and successful marriages and dates and partners. Yeah, so I think that our data is counter to what OkCupid was publishing because, yeah, like I was saying, the results are flipped, where
mm.
Asians tend to be actually more engaged, more successful, higher date rates. So yeah,
Heck yeah, let's go.
yeah.
Coffee meets bagel babies. That's what we need.
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned in dating is that your product is your people. Like, so your users are your product,
Mm,
right? And so how you design your app, how what your brand stands for, attracts the people to your app, and then they become representative of your product at that point. So then that attracts other people to your app. So for us, we designed our app to have friction by design, right? So it was the opposite of Tinder, opposite of swiping, where we have no swipe mechanic, and we have a very finite fixed number of profiles instead of the unlimited swiping. So we've done that from day one.
mhm,
Limited number of profiles per day, and we had the friction by design. And what that did was that actually very much aligned with Asian culture, because Asians are very intentional, less so with the casual hookups that some of these other dating apps are more focused on. So that then attracted a lot of Asian Americans to our app. That attracted then other Asian Americans to our app. So I
mm.
think that is why, as long as, yeah, you're as an app builder, you have to be, and as a dating app builder, you have to be very mindful of that kind of, yeah, the people you attract become your product. So for us, we feel good about it's interesting. The industry has come full circle where everyone chased that swiping, the unlimited profiles, and now actually you'll hear a lot of these top dating apps are now becoming more intentional, because I think Coffee Meets Bagel had the right instinct from the beginning.
That's great. I think that's an important part. When I talk to a lot of my friends these days, there's a sense of there's a struggle when it comes to dating, and I feel that, like, genuinely at the level. Like, I'm so glad that I'm married, because honestly, I don't think I'd survive the dating market right now. I genuinely don't. I think that it is so hard to communicate who you are, the depth of who you are, in such a short, like, I don't know how many milliseconds, right? Like, there's been studies that show, like, that people really look at a profile before they move on. And one of the most common things I hear about is this problem where we have unlimited choices, and as a result, everyone's holding out for a little bit more. And that felt to me as more of a recent phenomenon. Is that something that you've observed in the industry or on the app itself?
Yeah, I think in the swipe era has really, I think, had some unintended consequences, where now it has kind of created a lot of, so the swipe fatigue is real, right? Where
Mhm.
people are tired of endless swiping, very shallow connections, right? Just mainly photo driven. And I think that is really, and then a lot of apps have followed suit and has just created a lot of negativity, I would say, when it comes to online dating. Um, I think, like I was saying, even the swipe based apps are now realizing that, yeah, that is burning out, like, the younger generations that are going through this right now, this endless swiping mechanic. So you'll notice even Bumble announced a pretty major announcement where they're going to get rid of their swipes. So that's pretty strong evidence that, yeah, this Gen Z younger generation, they're really struggling, yeah, to meet the right people in this environment. And the swipe apps have unfortunately trained people to just be, oh, okay, now I have this unlimited pool of people I can continue to swipe on. And that, I think that's hurt the industry. But I'm optimistic that, um, the the daters, speak with their behavior, right? So I think
Mm,
the dating apps will adapt based on this fatigue. And
mm,
good thing for us, we're pretty well positioned because we've always been that way from the beginning. So yeah, I feel
mhm.
we're going to benefit from this new generation, this what I'd call the post swipe era of more
Yeah.
intentional dating. Yeah.
I want to hear more about this and how Coffee Meets Bagel is meeting that, right? Like, what is the biggest pains you think um, that people are experiencing when they're going on these dating apps right now, and how is Coffee Meets Bagel like positioning to change that so that dating
Mhm.
becomes easier and not such a slog?
Yeah, yeah. One thing that we've always been a believer of is slow dating. So meaning just slow things down, not show unlimited profiles. Let people take so our profiles tend to be longer, more filled out, more data,
Mhm,
your background, your work experience, your interests, your values. So we've always encouraged people just to slow down, take some time to read the profiles. We're only going to give you 10, 20. We're not going to give you unlimited. So no rush. We're
mhm,
not going to give you more. Just look at what you have. And I think you'll notice like a lot of these emerging dating apps in this new era are actually following suit. They're kind of following the Coffee Meets Bagel model to give you once per week now. So
mhm,
they're realizing that the younger generation, they want to slow things down as well. I think the swiping is just too tiresome. So yeah, I think that um, yeah, I think daters want something more, and I think
mhm,
that I think the future, right? So this, if we move into this AI discussion, like one thing that AI can potentially do is help help you express yourself more, like help you express yourself better based
mhm,
on the information you give it. Because right now it's a lot of effort to create your profile. You got to give it a lot of information. But if there are certain things about you that of course, so let's say your friends probably know a lot about you that you may not know about yourself. So AI, can potentially recognize some of these patterns of like the photos that you have on your device, what you do, what you say. So I am optimistic that AI, of course, is not going to. There's a lot of hype around AI, but I think one thing I am optimistic about in this AI era is that it may be able to ex- help you better express yourself more easily and in your profile, or kind of like a matchmaker, just really understand you more deeply, and then allow people to get to know you more deeply instead of just your photos, which is mostly what dating apps are today.
100%. I want to hear way more about this because I agree with you. I think that as you know, we're hearing a lot of talk about AI. How do you see AI's role in perhaps modifying or improving the dating world as we're and how's Coffee Meets Bagel incorporating that?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say number one is trust and safety, right? So one thing that doesn't matter what technology cycle we're in, people want to know, it's at the top of our list. Is this person I'm talking to, are they a real person?
Mhm,
Right. First of all. Okay. Secondly, are they a good person? Like, is someone I can trust? Are they trying to scam me? Are they someone that, that I can trust and believe? Okay, so that's where AI, I think, will play a pretty strong role because, well, this kind of this cat and mouse game where AI is also helping bad actors get better and smarter at seeming that they're real and other people, and then but AI can also fight that AI, right? And I think that that's one thing I'm in a more efficient and cost effective way. So a lot of these great AI models that are coming out that are available to developers like us will allow us to fight those bad actors a lot better. So I think so. Trust and safety, number one, I think
mhm,
is going to benefit from AI.
mhm,
I think the other thing, as I said earlier, I do think there's room for AI to help with improving outcomes and improving lowering effort to create a profile and to allow you to express yourself even better than you can express in your own words today. So I'm optimistic. We Nobody has figured it out yet. So if you notice, all of the dating apps are exploring and launching maybe features here and there. We're in that similar boat where we're still doing a lot of research, talking to customers, doing a lot of thinking. And clearly, as you know, AI is changing every week, every month, like just new technologies coming out. So we're observing what the how to improve data outcomes. At the end of the day, we're going to focus on the enduring data problems that exist that are still unaddressed in this swipe era. And there are things that will never change, like the trust and safety part of it. Just getting people on dates with the right people, that will never change. And yeah, so I'm optimistic in that way. I am less optimistic when it comes to AI, when it comes like when uh talking to fake AI bots and fake companionship, things like that. I that Coffee Meets Bagel is not going to go in that direction.
Mhm.
Again, we're much more focused on the human side of dating, the realness, the humanity. So we still want people to meet each other in real life and not just chat with an AI bot. And we're not here for entertainment. We're here to drive the right outcomes, which is for people to meet real life partners in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad because sometimes it kind of scares me if I think about it, where we're all going. And I had a friend who showed me the stat about like the number of people in Gen Z who have had AI companions or like AI friends, and
Hmm.
it's a staggering amount. I think we need to bring people back to real relationships, real humans, and kind of regain that.
Yeah, agree.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that Big Asian Energy is officially out, and you can go and pick it up anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. If you've ever felt like there's something stopping you from reaching your full potential, if you've ever felt like you want to have that unstoppable charisma and confidence in the work that you do, as well as just the way you show up in life, this might be the book for you. It is a book that is jam-packed with research studies, advice, case studies, stories, and of course, so many different techniques and takeaways, including communication, as well as mindset, as well as confidence, and all the other topics out there. It just won one of the best books of 2025 on Amazon. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. And finally, if you have a few seconds, can I also ask you to leave a quick review for Big Asian Energy? It not only means the world to us to hear from you, but more importantly, it does absolutely help us in reaching more audiences. I hope you're having an amazing day, and thanks again. Now, I want to come back to the study that you have shared, because there's a stat in there that really struck me, which is that over half of API daters in a study has felt like they were culturally misunderstood by a partner. Do you mind sharing a little bit more of like what does that look like in on a day-to-day level in this day and age?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to culture and being misunderstood, culture is a very complicated topic, right? That it's really hard to express that in a profile, in an online dating profile, right? So once you meet somebody in real life and you start to talk about who you are, where you come from, how you were raised, some physical proxies and can help. So, hey, I'm Chinese American. Okay, well that probably comes with certain tendencies, right, of how I was raised as a Chinese American. However, it's as you know, it's very nuanced. Everyone's very different. Like how you're raised and your cultural and upbringing and understanding and how you're adapting to American life is quite different, family to family, person to person, regardless of your race or ethnicity. So
Hmm.
right. So I think what tends to happen is culture affects us pretty deeply, as you know, as an Asian American, where yeah, we have to manage this duality, right? You have your family, you have family background, your traditions, but then you have your self identity as an American, right? Especially if you're born here, you have a lot of non-Asian friends and people you work with and you go to school with, and you're managing your that identity inside your family, inside your house, versus your identity outside the house.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably where this being culturally misunderstood comes into play. Is it's really hard to tease that out until you really date somebody, right? And you have really long conversations with people. So that's probably why.
Mm. Right. And what I'm picturing when I see people answering, like I feel culturally misunderstood or culture plays a role. I imagine for a lot of us, and I'm massively stereotyping here. So, whoever's listening, if that's not your experience, please do DM me and let me know. I feel like, for example, one thing when I started dating my wife, right? She was a white, blonde, Canadian, Saskatchewan, grew up in a hockey town kind of girl. And there was a concern that I had that, like, how will I navigate the relationship? How do I, how do I navigate kids in this world? Like there's these topics that come up. Now, fortunately, man, I way underestimated my mom's response. My mom was just like, "Oh, I love her. Let's hang out with her more." But I feel like that is a concern for a lot of people when they're talking about different cultures. And I'm not just talking about Western versus Eastern culture, sometimes even within different Eastern cultures, Korean versus Vietnamese versus Taiwanese. Like we have different experiences that there's a lot of overlap with in that Venn diagram, but then there's always some differences. When you were doing the research around that cultural misunderstanding, how has that shown up or has that shown up in these kind of discussions?
A lot of what you said is very valid, even amongst the Asian American community. Chinese, Korean, Japanese, quite different as well, right? So there's similarities, commonalities, but then there's a lot of differences. So yeah, I think that that may be part of what came into play, but yeah, hard for us to tell just based on the survey results alone.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. I would love to shift, since you're talking a little bit more personally, I would love to hear, I mean, when you talk about your experience as CEO of Coffee Meets Bagel, what kind of questions do you get from your friends? What do people want to find out, especially the single ones who are out there right now trying to date?
Yeah, I do get that question a lot. Hey, how do I make a better profile? The same question that you asked.
Yeah, should we all DM you our individual dating profiles? Quincy reviews Coffee Meets Bagel dating profiles.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, yeah, that's one of those types of features we're considering because, yeah, like as a friend, you know a lot about your single friends, right? So it's like, okay, how do we tap into that? So that's something that we're looking into. But yeah, a lot of the questions come. It's what's one of my favorite things about working here is that being single, being a partner, or being in a relationship applies to everybody, right? So it's a very universal concept, and so when people walk up to me, either my neighbor or at parties, first of all, people are very positive. Hey, I love Coffee Meets Bagel. I know someone who got married, with someone who they found on Coffee Meets Bagel. So that's usually the first thing I hear when people talk to me when they hear that I work.
Do you guys have a nickname for Coffee Meets Bagel, like relationships or like babies? Is there a term like
little bagel bites? I think we call them little.
Is that actually? If not, that is brilliant. You should do it. Espresso and bagel bites.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'd say, yeah, how do I make a better profile? I think people are just generally very curious around dating in general. And that even our employees, one of the big reasons people come to work for us is like, yeah, they're just so intrigued by, wow, what is it like to work at a dating app? And what is it like to help people arguably make one of their most important decisions of their life is finding, their life partner. So yeah, I think, yeah, I really enjoy that aspect of this job where I like to be able to use the product that I work for, like, so meaning I could put it in my hands. I'm like, okay, this is what we build, this is what we deliver to people. So that's probably the most enjoyable part of my job is and just seeing we get so many letters in the mail unprompted. I don't know how many companies get this where people are just sending us wedding invitations.
You get wedding invitations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much love from the customer. They just thank us. They send us handwritten letters, wedding invitations. Our founder, she actually was an officiant at one of their weddings that the couple wanted to invite her. So yeah, she did that. So it's pretty incredible, the life impact that we have on people.
That's incredible. As a CEO who gets to see how this changes, and I'm sure there's been so many people who fell in love and felt seen. I think one of the quotes you've mentioned at one point talking about this is that AAPI, like a lot of Asian Americans, we're not necessarily looking to date specifically within our own culture, but we just want to feel seen. And I think that's universal. Like we all just want to be known and seen and not to hide who we are when it comes to dating and relationships. And many of us, yeah. So I would love to hear more. What is it like as a CEO to facilitate that?
Yeah, it feels amazing. Yeah, just as an Asian. So when I was interviewing with Coffee Meets Bagel, I only knew about it through reputation. I didn't really know much about it. And then when I got here and I did my research, and I was, oh wow, this, especially amongst Asian Americans, this is extremely popular.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to figure out why. Okay, like it's very aligned, just the way the brand is, the way the design is. The founders are Asian American women,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so I'm extremely proud to be leading a company that's having this impact, especially on people who are similar to me, being born and raised in America, Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's something that is very unique and something I'm very proud of. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Um, if you had a magic wand, being in this industry and really getting to see both sides of it and inside of this and outside of this, what are some of the biggest um, problems for average daters that you feel like if I had a magic wand that can make that go away, even if it's not through Coffee Meets Bagel, but just in general, what do you think are the biggest struggles that we're running into right now?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, so COVID uh, introduced one of the things that makes things more challenging, I would say, for singles, where before COVID, we were all going into an office for the most part, right? We
Mm-hmm.
were going in, we were just serendipitously meeting people at the water cooler, just having natural conversations. We go to happy hours, right? And just you would just meet people, talk to people, and you just get exposed. And a lot of relationships tend to happen spontaneously. And you see somebody at work or you see somebody at lunch or dinner. Oh wow, that person. I want to get to know that person better. Now with COVID, fortunately, the more recently, there's a lot more work activity, people returning to the office, but still, I would say that if you look at the percentages, it's still less than it used to be. Like there's a lot more remote work, people working from home, a lot more work flexibility, which is positive in that way. But I think for singles, that's become much harder for them to meet people organically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's why you start to see more um, in real life. Like there's a kind of a more of a recent shift to kind of more IRL based events and apps where people get to know each other, let's say through running clubs and more sports and hobby based activities and apps and things like that. Um, yeah. So like you said, I don't envy the people that are in this struggle right now. Now, in terms of the like how to address that, I do think that the one of that makes dating apps just that much more important because
Mm-hmm.
now that is a way to find people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, like for myself, I just met my wife through friend of friends, right? Just very naturally going out in San Francisco to the bars and
Mm-hmm.
clubs. And but with dating apps, at the very least, you're there with like-minded people, that are
Mm-hmm.
all you don't have to explain yourself. Hey, I'm looking for a partner here. And I do that's one of the benefits of dating apps where you can, like I said, you can filter, like you can, if you know what you want, you can find people that you're going to be most interested in and not embarrass yourself. And like if you go to a bar and you don't even know if the person's single or not, like you can, there's always that little fear, that, at least for me, like, okay, is this
Yeah.
person even, they might even be in a relationship already, but a dating app's okay, for yeah, people are there for a reason.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So this has been burning a hole in the back of my head. You are one of the leading CEOs who is also Asian American. I mean, you have that executive presence. I'm curious, what has your journey been like? Were you like just born CEO material? How did you get to where you are at?
Oh man, yeah, it's growing up. I think myself and other people would never have expected I would be in this position, and I've surprised even myself. And the reason is I've grown up as probably a um, pretty typical Asian American, immigrant parents, very introverted. I think there's like a natural cultural respect that you have for your elders, right? So you don't, and I'm the youngest of three brothers. So, in my household, I am the quiet one, right? Like I respect my brothers, I respect my parents. And so I've always grown up very quiet, very introverted. So I've always had this feeling like, hey, is there something wrong with me? Right? Like
Mm.
I'm awkward. And so as I went through school, started to get my first jobs, and I carried that with me throughout my life. And then as time went on, I just felt more comfortable. I felt like I really understood the domains that I was working in. And the real life changing moment for me is when my wife handed me this book called Quiet by Susan Cain. And when I read that book, and it was The Power of Introverts, I was so, it was so change it life it was so life changing for me, because I was like, oh wow, I am not alone. Like, and not
Mm.
only am I not alone in being this way, it's a pretty large percent of the population,
Mhm.
and it's more of an asset than it is a liability for a company, right?
Mm.
So, for example, introverts tend to be much more thoughtful. They listen before they speak. Are less risk taking, right? So, as a company, especially as a CFO, it like that balance of the founders that that may be a little bit more aggressive and unrealistic sometimes. Having that introverted person in the room that's very thoughtful, analytical, so that really helped me feel so much more comfortable in my skin. I gained so much more confidence after reading that book. Just like, hey, I'm a proud introvert.
Mm.
And it's interesting because even after that book, there was a lot of other people I think were started to admit a lot more, and it became much more open part of the discussion,
Mm.
at least within the tech industry. So
Mm.
so it was really validating. I felt yeah. So I think, like I said, I wouldn't be in this position right now without that confidence and feeling just really proud of who I am. And yes, proud introvert. Um, yeah.
I love that. By the way, I this is Quiet is one of my favorite books. I recommend it so often to my friends. I actually referenced it in when I was writing my own book, Big Asian Energy, because it is true. Like there is this perception of introversion that often works against many of us. And I say us, even though I present very big. The truth is, I'm actually super introverted. Like, if left to my own devices, I'm like on my couch watching Pursuit of Jade pretty much the entire day. That is usually who I am. I used to be like this, like wallflower behind the wallflower. I think that the way that we show up as that communication really comes back down to how much of who we are do we own, like that a sense of this is who I am and this is how I lead. And I'm curious, like as a CEO, this is you lead people on a regular basis. Is there any are there any tools that you've learned that lets you stay in that grounded, strong, powerful leadership without having to pretend to be something that you're not, having to pretend to be loud or like, like pretend to put on the show that you don't really feel connected to?
Yeah, what's interesting, there's a certain common thread in dating as well as being a CEO, which is it's really important to listen to people and make sure they feel heard. Okay, that's a very natural human need. So when you're dating somebody, my top advice: just stop talking for a second. Just listen to what the other person's trying to say. Really listen to what they're saying. Ask questions. Make sure that you hear what they're saying and you stay curious. So to me as a CEO, I think that goes a long way when people feel heard, that I'm listening to them. I'm not speaking first. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? What are your problems? How can I solve these problems? How can I move obstacles that are
Mm.
in your way right now? Yeah. And I think that quiet consideration it means a lot to people. And I'm not just telling them what to do. I'm working with them to solve problems together.
Mm. I love that. I love the idea of let's solve problems together, and I love the comparison to how being a CEO is very similar to dating. At the end of the day, all relationships are relationship, all business relationships are just human relationships, right? It's how do we make one another feel? How do we make one another feel seen and heard and understood? And in doing so, then we could be collaborative. And one of my personal core tenets with my wife early on was just like it's you and me against the patterns. If there's a conflict comes up, how do we collaborate to figure it out? And I love that that's a leadership perception as well for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of when you are looking at Asian Americans in the corporate spaces or in these kind of spaces in tech and finance, et cetera, because you have a considerable background with so many different, leading so many different things. What do you think are some of the real struggles that Asian Americans are still facing in that world these days?
Yeah, I still think it persists the perception that when you're depending on which company you're at and who the executives are, right? Like, okay, what's
Mm-hmm.
the cultural background of those people, right? So typically, if you look at the percentages, it's still going to be predominantly white men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the numbers are definitely becoming more favorable. There's more representation amongst gender for more women, more Asians. However, I'd still say it's probably still below where it is from a kind of percent of the general population.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that because of that, there's still that struggle and barrier where, hey, as an Asian, there's a lot of perception that you're too quiet, you don't have that presence in the room, you're not the loudest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas certain cultures, they value that. Hey, you're the CEO, you really should be banging the table and talking over everyone and having the loudest voice in the room, right? And if you go to certain boardrooms, that's what they may value, like that kind of charismatic leader that's going to be the loudest person. So I think with as an Asian, the real the it's as an Asian, you just have to be mindful of that. I wouldn't say you should change yourself, like if you don't feel comfortable, but just be aware that you're going to have that perception when you walk into that room. Until they hear you talk, they're going to assume, okay, you're just going to be someone who's quiet, someone who's passive, right? You're not the aggressive type. Yeah, and I think we see that with schools as well, as we know with all these new investigations into Ivy League admissions of like, yeah, there's a certain perception that Asians have that we have to battle, right? And you have to do it one conversation at a time, one job at a time, to just show people who you really are, what you can bring to a company. So that all I could advise is just be mindful of your surroundings and be mindful of this cultural understanding and expectation. Go to the company that that really values you, right? So if you go to a company that doesn't value that, then maybe you should go somewhere that you are valued for who you are and what you bring to the table.
I love that. I wanted to follow up on that. If you could speak to any, our audience in terms of Asian Americans who are looking to kind of break through their own independent ceilings, whatever that looks like in their workplace, their relationships, et cetera, do you have any advice for them that you would give them from your own experience?
Yeah, I think, well, number one, I would recommend, if you feel similar to me, if you feel there's something wrong with you and you're too quiet or you're too introverted, I do highly recommend reading the book Quiet by Susan Cain. I do. It was so strong for me because it was very well researched. It wasn't just a bunch of words. It was like, okay, she did her work and she talked to a lot of people. She did her academic research, and had some science behind her assertion. So I really recommend that for people. And just be really comfortable with who you are. Understand you are yourself. Be very reflective, self-reflective, self-aware, and also talk to others. So make sure you have good mentors. I think that's probably the most if I were to talk to myself 10, 20 years ago, the advice I'd give to myself is, hey, make sure you foster relationships with the right mentors and coaches, because they
Mhm.
will do wonders for you. They will help you. They will call out your blind spots that you don't see for yourself. They will introduce you to other good people. They will help you introduce you and network and find companies and find hiring managers and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits that I think people don't realize when they're coming of age, like how
Mhm.
important that is for getting to know people that have done it before and that could really teach you a lot of things that you just have to experience to know. And then if someone's already gone through that, it really puts you on the right course.
Hmm. I love that. And how would you suggest someone go about figuring out who's the right mentor or coach for them in that journey?
Yeah, I think it's more just the more people you talk to. So wherever you go to school, wherever you go to work, just have conversations with people. You'll feel it out. Everyone's going to be a bit different. What resonates with you and what makes you feel comfortable. But I think just the more you talk to people, and also just be a good person. Like,
Mhm.
one thing that I think has paid dividends for me, like at work and at school, is I treat people with respect. I don't play politics with people. So I think people tend to want to help me, right? Because of that. So they feel they can trust me. I give before I get. And that has helped build great mentorships, like because people have been willing to help me when I realize, okay, I really look up to you. Can you help me? So I think it's talking to people, being a good person. Yeah, just I would highly recommend networking. I know for introverts that may be uncomfortable, but I think you'll find that it pays a lot of dividends later, because if you don't do that, you're kind of swimming upstream, because now you're an Asian on paper and you're in a sea of Asians that, unfortunately, there's that perception. Yeah, you're kind of you you look like everyone else when it comes to your resume. So the networking is important because it cuts through a lot of that noise. So I'd highly recommend that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, Quincy, for coming on the show today. You have dropped some serious truth bombs that I'm sure a lot of people who are out there dating. First and foremost, if you're still out there looking for the one, come check out Coffee Meets Bagel, because the odds are ever in your favor. And don't forget, if you get married, send Quincy a love note and say thanks. Quincy, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, John. I really love what you do, and yeah, thank you for representing us.
As per always, if there's something that you heard on the show from Quincy, from me, or anything else that you felt like resonated, take a moment and please send it right now to somebody you care about, somebody who is in your life who might benefit from it. And as always, we say here is we're here for each other, with each other. When we rise together. Whatever you're going through, wherever it is that you are, I just want to say I care about you. I appreciate you. And I know you're doing the best you can. So let's keep growing together. Thanks very much for listening to Big Asian Energy, and I'll see you next week.